The door to the abandoned East Wing creaked open, and Julian Ashford froze. There, in the dusty sunlight filtering through broken shutters, stood a woman he'd never seen before, cradling a sleeping child against her chest. Her eyes went wide with terror. His voice came out as a whisper. "How long have you been living in my house?" But to understand how we got here, to this impossible moment, I need to take you back 9 months. Back to when Julian Ashford's life was perfect on paper, but hollow inside. Back to when a desperate woman named Elena made a choice that would change everything. 9 months earlier, Elena Rodriguez stood outside the iron gates of the Ashford estate at 2 in the morning. Her 4-year-old daughter Lily asleep in her arms. The child was burning with fever. Elena had $43 left to her name, and her ex-boyfriend, Lily's father, had just posted on social media that he was coming to take back what's his. She'd been walking for 6 hours since fleeing their motel room. The estate sprawled before her like something from another world. Lit windows in the main house, manicured lawns disappearing into darkness. And there, at the far edge of the property, a section of the mansion that sat completely dark. Not a single light. Not even security cameras pointed that direction. The East Wing. According to the local rumors she'd overheard at the diner where she'd worked 3 jobs ago, the billionaire Julian Ashford never went there. His father had died in that wing 15 years ago, and Julian had simply sealed it off, like a tomb. Elena looked down at Lily's flushed face. She thought about the restraining order that Thomas had violated 2 times already. She thought about the shelters with their 3-day maximum stays and their waiting lists. She thought about what a good mother was supposed to do. Then she found the gap in the fence. Julian Ashford had everything, except a reason to care about having it. At 34, he doubled his inheritance, sat on the boards of 6 companies, and came home every night to 17,000 square feet of empty house. His assistant managed his calendar. His chef managed his meals. His cleaning staff managed everything else. He never went to the East Wing. That was the one rule. The therapists he'd stopped seeing would say he was avoiding grief. Julian preferred to think of it as efficient time management. Why walk through rooms full of memories when you could simply build a life in the parts of the house that didn't hurt? That morning, the morning Elena had been living in his walls for exactly 3 weeks, Julian almost went to the East Wing. He'd been working in his study when he'd heard it. A sound, faint, like singing. He stood up, walked toward the sealed double doors that led to that section of the house, and stopped with his hand on the doorknob. The singing had stopped. He stood there for a full minute, listening to silence. Then his phone rang with a crisis at the Tokyo office, and he forgot about it completely. Elena had gotten good at being invisible. She'd learned which floorboards creaked. She'd memorized Julian's schedule down to the minute. He left at 7:30, returned at 7. She'd found the old servant stairs that let her move through the house like smoke. During the day, while he was gone, she'd use the kitchen. She'd take small amounts, half a loaf of bread, a few eggs, never enough for anyone to notice. She'd discovered the East Wing had its own water system, its own bathroom that still worked. She'd cleaned years of dust from 2 rooms and made them livable. At night, she'd read to Lily by flashlight. She'd teach her letters by tracing them in the dust. She'd hold her daughter close and promise, just a little longer. Mama's saving money. Soon we'll have our own place. What Elena didn't say, Thomas had found her at the last 3 places she'd worked. He had friends who helped him look. He'd told her once, with his hand around her throat, that she'd never be able to hide Lily from him. But here, in the forgotten corner of a billionaire's mansion, here she was finally invisible. It happened on a Tuesday in May. Julian's head housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, had been with the family for 30 years. She'd been there when Julian's father died. She'd respected the boundary around the East Wing without question. Until the day she saw the small, muddy footprint in the main hall. Child-sized. Fresh. "Mr. Ashford," she had said carefully that evening, "I think we may have a situation." Julian had hired the security team immediately. Former police, thorough, discreet. They'd done a sweep of the grounds and found nothing. But the lead investigator had said something that stuck with Julian. "Sir, with respect, when was the last time anyone checked the interior of the East Wing?" Julian had frozen. He said, "That section is sealed." "Sealed from you, maybe, but if someone gained access from the outside." That night, Julian couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about that singing he had heard, about the footprint, about the fact that he'd been living in this massive house alone, while someone else might have been. At 3 in the morning, he got up. He walked to the double doors leading to the East Wing, and this time, he opened them. The East Wing smelled of dust and memories and something else. Something lived in. Julian moved through the first corridor, his phone flashlight cutting through the darkness. Nothing. Another room. Nothing. Then he saw it. A door, slightly ajar with fresh scratches around the lock where someone had picked it. His heart was hammering now. He pushed the door open slowly. The room had been transformed. Clean. A makeshift bed on the floor. Children's drawings taped to the walls. A small pile of clothes folded neatly in the corner. And there, in a cup on the windowsill, a single wildflower. Someone was living here. Someone with a child. Julian's mind raced. Should he call the police, security? But something stopped him. The careful way everything was arranged. The obvious effort to leave no trace. The children's drawings. One showed a smiling son and a little girl holding a woman's hand. This wasn't a squatter. This was someone hiding. He heard the floorboard creak behind him and spun around. Elena stood in the doorway, Lily clutched against her chest. The little girl was awake now, wide-eyed and afraid. Elena's face was pale, but her chin was raised, defiant. "Please," Elena said quietly, "please don't call the police." Julian just stared. The woman was thin, exhausted, wearing clothes that had been washed too many times. But her eyes were fierce with a protection he recognized. It was how his mother had looked at him in those final days with his father. "How long?" His voice came out rougher than he intended. 9 months. 9 months. She'd been living in his house for 9 months, and he'd never known. "I'll leave," Elena said quickly. "Right now. Just give me 10 minutes to pack. Please don't call anyone. Please." Lily started to cry softly. Elena bounced her, whispering comfort, and Julian saw the way the child's hand gripped her mother's shirt, like she was holding on to the only safe thing in the world. "What's your name?" Julian asked. Elena hesitated. Then, "Elena, and this is Lily." "Elena." Julian ran a hand through his hair. "You've been living in my house for 9 months. You've been stealing food." "I kept a list." Elena's voice was urgent now. "Every single thing I took, I calculated the cost. When I get a job, I'll pay you back. Every penny. I swear." If you believe everyone deserves safety and dignity, hit that subscribe button. People who prey on the vulnerable won't, and you need to hear what Julian did next. Julian looked at the little girl, at the mother, at the careful way they'd tried to leave no trace, at the children's drawings on the wall, and the single wildflower in the cup. "Who are you hiding from?" he asked quietly. Elena's jaw tightened. "That's not your concern. You're living in my house. It's my concern." They stared at each other. Finally, Elena's shoulders sagged. "Lily's father. He doesn't accept that it's over. And the courts, restraining orders are just paper. He's violated 2 of them. Last time, he put me in the hospital." Julian felt something cold settle in his chest. "Where's he now?" "I don't know. That's why we keep moving. That's why we—" She looked around the room. "This was supposed to be temporary, just until I saved enough to leave the state, start over somewhere he can't find us." "And have you saved enough?" She laughed, but it was a broken sound. "I've got $216. It took 9 months to save that because I can't work. If I work, I have to give an address. If I give an address, he finds us." She looked at Lily. "So I've been doing online freelance work, cash jobs where no one asks questions. It's not enough. It's never enough." Julian was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that surprised even himself. "Stay." Elena's head snapped up. "What?" "Stay here, in the East Wing. But not like this." He gestured to the makeshift room. "There are proper bedrooms, furniture, heat. I'll have Mrs. Chen set them up. You can stay until you have enough to start over properly." I can't pay you." "I don't want your money, Elena." She stared at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. "Why would you help me?" Julian looked around the room, at the life she'd built in secret, at the strength it must have taken to survive like this for 9 months, at the little girl who was watching him with her mother's fierce eyes. "My father," Julian said slowly, "was not a good man, especially at the end. And my mother, she stayed because she didn't think she had anywhere else to go. She was wrong, but she didn't know that. By the time she figured it out, it was too late." He met Elena's gaze. "You found somewhere else to go. You saved yourself and your daughter. That takes... I'm not going to be the person who makes you go back out there. Not when I have 17,000 square feet I'm not even using." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "You don't know me. I could be anyone. I could be dangerous." "You're not dangerous. You're desperate. There's a difference." He pulled out his phone. "I'm going to call my housekeeper. She'll set up proper rooms for you and Lily. Tomorrow, we'll figure out the rest." "The rest?" "Security. Making sure he can't find you. Getting you help from people who actually know how to handle this kind of situation." Julian's voice hardened. "And if he does find you here, he'll have to go through me first." The next 6 weeks changed everything. Mrs. Chen, after the initial shock, had taken to Elena and Lily immediately. The East Wing was transformed from a dusty mausoleum into a warm, lived-in space. Lily's laughter echoed through rooms that hadn't heard a child's voice in decades. Julian found himself doing something he hadn't done in years, coming home early. He'd find Elena reading to Lily in the library, or they'd be in the kitchen baking cookies with Mrs. Chen, or in the garden, where Lily would show him the flowers she'd found. Elena was still guarded, but slowly, in small moments, she'd let him see past the walls she'd built. She'd tell him about her dreams before Thomas. She'd wanted to be a teacher. She'd show him her freelance work, beautiful graphic designs she created on a laptop held together with tape. "You're good at this," Julian had said one evening, scrolling through her portfolio. "I'm surviving at this," Elena had corrected. But she'd smiled a little. One night, Julian found her on the terrace after Lily had gone to bed. She was staring out at the grounds, wrapped in one of the blankets Mrs. Chen had provided. "Penny for your thoughts?" Julian asked, joining her. "I keep waiting for it to fall apart. For Thomas to show up, for you to change your mind, for something. It's been too good, too easy. Elena, you lived in secret in an abandoned wing of a stranger's house for 9 months. Nothing about your life has been easy." She laughed softly. "Then, why are you really doing this, Julian? And don't tell me it's about your mother. There's something else." Comments: "Everyone deserves a second chance if you're Team Elena. People like Thomas don't believe that. Now watch what happens when the past finally catches up." Julian was quiet for a long moment. Then, "When my father died, he was drunk. He fell down the stairs in the East Wing, and I was the one who found him." He swallowed hard. "I was 17, and my first thought wasn't sadness. It was relief, because he couldn't hurt my mother anymore." Elena reached out, touched his hand gently. "I sealed that wing because it represented everything I couldn't fix. Every time I failed to protect her. Every night I heard them fighting and did nothing." Julian looked at Elena. But you didn't wait for someone to save you. You saved yourself. And when I found you, I finally had a chance to be the person I wished I'd been back then. Julian, Elena's voice was soft. You were a child. You couldn't have. I know that now. But helping you and Lily, it's helping me too. They sat in comfortable silence. Then Elena said, I'm thinking I'm falling for you, and that terrifies me. Julian turned to her, his heart hammering. Why does it terrify you? Because last time I trusted someone, I ended up running for my life. Because you're a billionaire and I'm I'm a woman who was squatting in your house. Because this doesn't make sense. And things that don't make sense always fall apart. Or, Julian said carefully, maybe it makes perfect sense. Maybe we're exactly what each other needed. He leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. When their lips met, it felt like something clicking into place, like the mansion had finally become a home. The next morning, Thomas found them. He tracked Elena through a single mistake. A photo Mrs. Chen had posted on her personal social media celebrating Lily's birthday. Just a glimpse of the garden, but it was enough. When Julian's security team intercepted Thomas at the gate, he was carrying printed photos of Elena and Lily. He'd been watching the house for days. But this time, Elena wasn't alone. Julian's lawyers filed for emergency protective orders. His security team provided evidence to the police. And Elena, for the first time in years, felt safe enough to press charges properly. 3 months later, Thomas was in jail awaiting trial. Elena had enrolled in online teaching courses. Lily started preschool at a prestigious academy, driven there each morning by a woman who no longer looked over her shoulder in fear. And Julian had workers renovate the entire East Wing. New windows, fresh paint, modern security. Why are you fixing it up? Elena asked one morning, watching the construction crew. Julian smiled. Because this wing isn't about death anymore. It's about new beginnings. About a woman brave enough to hide in the shadows until she was strong enough to step into the light. He took her hand. And because when we get married, if you'll have me, I want our bedroom to be in the East Wing. I want Lily to grow up here knowing that sometimes the scariest places become the safest havens. That sometimes the person you least expect becomes your home. Elena kissed him. Yes. 1 year later, the East Wing echoed with laughter again. Lily's birthday party filled every room, and on the mantel, in a place of honor, sat a single pressed wildflower in a frame, the one Elena had kept in a cup during those 9 months of hiding. A reminder that sometimes survival leads to something better than you ever imagined. Sometimes the abandoned places hold exactly what we need. And sometimes the person squatting in your mansion turns out to be the love of your life.